If you notice Holly, our little 18-month-old yearling, she has something to eat, and she keeps chewing it, and she's always looking left to right, very aware of her surroundings. Notice she watches Ted. She's looking at the viewing windows. She can see the people inside when she looks at the viewing windows. And she can also see her reflection in the viewing windows. Holly decided now to climb the tree a few feet because Ted got up. Ted is now standing in front of the scale. And she went to the tree the minute Ted stood up. Notice how Holly is managing to hang on to the tree, still get those treats on the tray. And she's also got her eye on Ted Bear. A yearling's life, like Holly in the wild, isn't always very fun. They spend a lot of their first year alone without their mother, being treed by larger bears, especially females. Holly Bear is now above eye level of most of us on the deck. Great pictures for those of you on the observation deck. Holly is demonstrating the exceptional climbing skills black bears have. She has sat on this perch before. And she's busy kind of chewing on parts of the tree. But notice she's watching Ted. Ted is creeping a little bit closer to the tree. What Holly doesn't know is Ted's not going to climb the tree. But Holly just doesn't know that. She's extremely safe up there. Now Ted, for PTZ driver, Ted is at the bottom of the pat tree, eating the treats in Holly's tube. The whole purpose of using a toy or a tube or a cube or something that we put treats in is to really demonstrate how bears problem solve and their dexterity skills. Holly right now is taller than the roof of the Bear Center. She is about 6 feet taller than the location of the PTZ. The whole purpose of using toys or enrichment opportunities for bears is to demonstrate problem solving and their dexterity. Those are the same types of skills that a wild bear has to use in the wild. For example, if there's a great ant colony underneath a big rock, they either need to dig it out or they've got to move the rock, or a rotten log. If there's an ant colony in a rotten log, they can smell that, and they use their claws to dig out the rotten log to get at the ant larvae. It's really not the mature ants that they're looking for. It's really the immature ants and also the immature bees in a bee colony or a beehive. There's a myth about bears like honey, and that's why they go to beehives. That's really not quite accurate. yes, they do and can get honey in an effort to get the immature bees, but their real focus is on the protein of the immature bees, and they coincidentally get honey maybe along the way. For the PTZ driver, Holly's looking right at you, and you probably, if the camera goes that high, she's just about at eye level for the PTZ driver and our worldwide visitors, volunteers, teachers, educators, and listeners around the world. I want to take a moment to thank those volunteers and people that are helping educate around the world today and every day. This is one of the ways here at the Bear Center we can assist and reach out to the rest of the world through the internet capabilities that we're so fortunate to have nowadays. Many years ago, podcasts and these types of opportunities were just not available. Holly seems right now more interested in biting the tree and playing with some of the stubs of the branches, as well as twisting some of the other branches in her mouth. She really doesn't seem to be all that concerned about Ted, although I do see she is glancing at where he is, and now she's coming down a few feet. Ted is really not paying much attention. He's just chomping away. Ted is using his tongue. I'm watching Ted putting his tongue in the hole to pull out some of the treats. Peanuts, dried cranberries are some of the things that are in those tubes. A black bear's tongue is about 7-8 inches long and a little sticky. So if Ted's able to get his tongue in the hole, because the black bear's tongue is slightly sticky, he can also pull out the peanuts or the dried cranberries that are in there as well. Right now, Holly seems to be far more interested in the tree than anything else, and she's just having fun. Holly, at this point in her development of getting used to the 2.5 acres, Holly really is more comfortable around Ted, even though she is up in the tree. She probably wouldn't be down here if it was Honey Bear. Honey is our 18-year-old female who has treed her on a number of occasions because it is a matriarchal society in the wild. And what do I mean by a matriarchal society? Well, the females run the show. Honey's as I said, is our 18-year-old cinnamon phased black bear. And Holly needs to learn that Honey will run the show, and Honey's demonstrating that to Holly by treeing her and, shall we say, putting her in her place. We have another bear here. His name is Lucky. He's a 7-year-old neutered male. It looks like his developing relationship with Holly is going to be a potential playmate. Maybe. About 3-4 days ago, they played what I call Ring Around the Rosie around a couple pine trees down there at the far right. Lucky could have caught up to Holly, but he just loped along behind her, kind of half-heartedly chasing her with no ill will. You could just tell that they were just running around the trees, just having fun. For those of you here at the North American Bear Center, there's another tree that if you're here a little later or choose to come back, that there is a half-dead white pine to my left, and I happen to be pointing to it. It's got a forked top. half of it's dead and half of it is alive. This morning around approximately 8:30, Holly was halfway up that tree. And what's interesting about a white pine is it's one of the favorite trees of black bears in this area. I'm going to stop talking a minute. PTZ driver, Holly's coming down the pat tree quickly. Ted is on the move to the right. Holly is in the clover patch, PTZ driver. Ted is near the food shed. What you just saw, and I'll reasonably interpret that for you, Ted was on the move away from Holly. Ted was moving to the far right. Holly saw that interaction, that he was on the move the other way, and she's thinking, this is my opportunity. If I want to get down the tree, I'm going to take it. And she did. She came down the tree, went over the rock bridge, and she's now running in the clover patch. She is in the brush, possibly heading toward the white pine. But back to you people here at the Bear Center. She will spend time in that white pine. We have found her sleeping. Or we have also found her, again, about halfway up, looking into this area where they both were, where both Ted and Holly were. It's a great lookout for her, where the other bears can't get her. And she can see what's going on in this area. She can also see if one of her human mothers is out there. She can hear from that area. And if you really look at that vantage point, she can see if a bear is in the pond. She can see this entire open area. It's a pretty safe place for her to hang out, as well as a white pine because of the shape of its bark and the fact that the bark does not come off very easily. It is the primary refuge tree for black bears. The vast majority of females who come out of the den in the springtime and have cubs, PTZ driver, she's headed toward her deadfall. The vast majority of the time when a mother comes out of the den in the springtime with the cubs, whether it be 1, 2, 3, or 4, doesn't matter, she will typically walk those cubs to the nearest white pine and spend the first few days out of the den at the base of a white pine. If there's danger and the mother suspects that there is danger, the cubs immediately will climb the white pine, waiting for further instructions from their mom. If you look at some of the other trees here in our enclosure, aspens, yes, they can climb aspens, but the bark is a little more slippery. If there's any birch, and I'm sure you're familiar with birch bark, it's very slippery. We also have red pines here. Red pines, the bark is also flaky and will come off. Makes it a little bit more challenging for a bear in a hurry to get up a tree. I want to thank all of you for coming here to the North American Bear Center today. The last location I saw of Holly was at the deadfall area for the PTZ driver. At this moment, I do not see her. Oh yes, PTZ driver, go to the High Falls. From the High Falls, slight left. She's in a tree that's been cut off, or broke rather, at about the 20-foot level. She's at the top of that broken tree at the 20-foot level. That also happens to be a tree that is rotting. It's what's left of an aspen. The woodpeckers have also hit that tree, by the way. I've been back there. There may be an ant colony in that tree. She seems to have gone to that tree a couple of times. For those of you here on the deck, if you got a nice camera lens, you probably can get some really nice pictures of her. Again, for the PTZ driver, it is beyond the high falls. Almost straight back from the high falls. She's probably 15 to 20 foot up, playing at the top of that tree that has been broken here. In fact, actually, I think it was last year in a little windstorm. She's doing what yearlings do: climb, have fun, maybe looking for a little food, and of course she knows she's safe from one of the other bears. I do want to thank everybody that came here to the North American Bear Center today. Our next enrichment opportunity for bears will be at 1 o'clock and again at 4 o'clock. The 1 o'clock will be broadcast here locally at the North American Bear Center. 4 o'clock will be live worldwide again with the help of our worldwide volunteers and the visitors that tune in either at 11 or 1 every day. For those of you here at the Bear Center, we have over 60 videos. We also have 2 BBC documentaries playing in our theater. Both of those documentaries were filmed exclusively here in the Ely area, and each are 1 hour long with no commercials. Both BBC documentaries are the BBC people filming Dr. Rogers and his fellow researchers here in the Ely area. PTZ driver, focus on the scale. We have Honey Bear has arrived. Honey Bear has just arrived at the scale location for PTZ driver. And for the PTZ driver, we still have Holly in that dead tree behind the high falls. So now that we have Honey Bear here too, I'll tell you about a little bit about Honey Bear. Honey Bear is our 18-year-old cinnamon phase black bear. She will never be black in color. She's always going to be this pretty honey, I call it honey or cinnamon phase. Looks like she's going to get her own treat too. What a deal. One of our great bear educators just threw out a cube or a block, whatever you want to call it. I tend to call it a cube. And Honey is pretty darn good at working the cube. The cube is made out of extremely hard plastic. It has 2 holes in it, and Honey is the most adept at getting food out of the cube. The cube is very frustrating to Lucky Bear, but not for Honey.